The prospect of nuclear conflict, once unthinkable, is now back within the realm of possibility.
Did you know a single nuclear bomb can generate temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun and wipe out an entire city in seconds? Now imagine thousands of them detonating within an hour, turning continents into blazing firestorms and plunging the planet into a deadly nuclear winter. It's terrifying to think about, isn't it? But what would the world really look like if this nightmare became a reality?
A modern nuclear weapon hitting in a major American city would be many times worse than the Hiroshima or Nagasaki.
The world is already on edge. Tensions between nuclear-armed nations have been simmering for years, like a pot about to boil over. Political speeches grow more hostile, military drills happen closer and closer to rival territories, and threats, veiled and outright, are exchanged regularly. You've seen the headlines, right? Russia testing hypersonic missiles, North Korea showing off its latest weapons, and nations like the United States and China bracing themselves for potential conflict.
Wait a minute, 70,000 nuclear weapons is just an accident waiting to happen. And so we are at 12,500.
But why hasn't anyone pushed the button yet? That's where deterrence comes in. Ever heard of the doctrine of mutually assured destruction? It's this grim understanding that if one nuclear power launches an attack, the others will retaliate, ensuring total annihilation for everyone involved. It's not a peace built on trust or goodwill, it's a standoff built on fear. The fragile balance has held for decades, but in this imagined scenario, something snaps. A decision is made, and then the unthinkable happens. It begins with a single flash, a light so bright it blinds anyone unlucky enough to be looking directly at it. The first bomb, a 1 megaton thermonuclear weapon, hits the Pentagon. For context, that's about 50 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The initial explosion is horrifying. The temperature at ground zero reaches an unimaginable 180 million degrees Fahrenheit in an instant, enough to vaporize anything and everything within its radius.
Or reproductive health care, or government spending. Like, you should care about nuclear weapons.
As long as these weapons are around, the possibility will always be there that they will actually be used.
So, while a nuclear attack...
Buildings don't just collapse, they are obliterated. Streets melt, steel turns to liquid, and the air itself seems to ignite. The blast radius is around 9 miles, but the damage doesn't stop there. Winds traveling faster than hurricanes rip through the area, flattening structures that managed to survive the initial shock. Fires erupt everywhere, consuming everything in their path. Cars, trees, homes, nothing stands a chance. People, well, those caught in the immediate blast are simply gone. For the survivors on the edges, it's worse. Skin burns, lungs sear from inhaling superheated air, and bodies are torn apart by flying debris. And this is just the beginning. The Pentagon is gone, yes, but this attack is about more than one iconic building. It's a signal, a horrifying first move in what's about to become an all-out nuclear nightmare. The Pentagon is just the first target. Within minutes, more missiles streak across the sky, heading towards major cities and military installations in the US and UK. The targets are clear: New York, Washington, London, Los Angeles, Manchester. Each strike brings another flash of blinding light, another deafening explosion, and another city turned into a smoldering ruin. In this scenario, it's not just 1 or 2 bombs, it's thousands. Imagine looking at the horizon and seeing fireballs rising in every direction, each one consuming everything within miles. The ground shakes constantly, like an unending earthquake. Entire skylines vanish in seconds. The world you knew, the one with bustling cities, towering skyscrapers, and vibrant neighborhoods, is reduced to ash and rubble.
The Secretary General said last year or something, we are one misunderstanding, one miscommunication away from nuclear annihilation. He's not kidding.
Then comes the firestorms. These aren't ordinary fires. They are massive self-sustaining infernos that stretch for hundreds of square miles. They grow and feed off the destruction, sucking oxygen from the air and leaving nothing but smoke and death in their wake. If you were to hover above one of these cities, even if there were no more walls left to hide behind, you'd see nothing but a hellish landscape of flames and blackened ruins. The heat is so intense that it creates its own weather system, with fire tornadoes ripping through what remains. At this point, it's impossible to comprehend the scale of the destruction. Millions are dead within the first hour. Survivors wander aimlessly, burnt, bleeding, and choking on toxic air. The once familiar landmarks are gone, replaced by a wasteland of charred remains. And yet, the attacks keep coming. Each bomb adds to the chaos. Each city that falls brings the world closer to total collapse. By the end of the first hour, the devastation is beyond anything humanity has ever experienced. The sky is darkened by smoke and ash, and the earth itself seems to groan under the weight of so much death and destruction. What happens next? If the first strike was unimaginable, the minutes and hours that follow are a waking nightmare. Think about this. Within moments of those initial nuclear detonations, hundreds of millions of people are gone. Not just in one city, but across countless urban centers, towns, and military bases. Most of them never even knew what hit them. A flash of light, and then nothing. For others, death comes more slowly and painfully.
What was the exact issue?
So his name was Petrov, and it was in 1983. So what's even more remarkable about it?
In the days and weeks following the attacks, the planet starts to cool dramatically. Without sunlight, temperatures drop fast. Crops fail almost immediately. Fields that once grew wheat, corn, and rice become barren wastelands. You can't farm in freezing temperatures, especially not when those temperatures last for years. This is nuclear winter, a grim reality where sunlight can't break through the thick layer of soot in the atmosphere. Weather patterns go haywire. Rain and snowfall stops in many regions, while others experience unrelenting storms. Entire ecosystems begin to collapse. Animals starve. Plants die off. By this point, society as we know it ceases to exist. There's no law, no order, no government stepping in to restore balance. What happens when millions of desperate people, hungry and scared, have nothing left to lose? Chaos. Survival instincts take over, and humanity reverts to its most primal state. People fight over whatever scraps of food and resources they can find. Violence becomes the new normal. Mass displacement follows. Those who can still move, families, individuals, entire communities, begin a desperate search for safety. Refugee camps spring up in places that haven't been directly hit, but even these areas are overwhelmed. Resources are scarce everywhere. Clean water is hard to come by. Food supplies dwindle, with crops failing globally. Famine takes hold. It's not just a few countries here and there, it's worldwide. Billions of people are at risk of starvation. What started as a nuclear conflict between a few nations has spiraled into an extinction-level event for humanity. The lucky ones, if you can call them that, may survive for a while by scavenging or living off stockpiles, but in the long run, there is no escaping the ripple effects of what just happened. Without sunlight, temperatures drop across the globe, freezing farmlands and wiping out crops. Entire ecosystems collapse, forests die, rivers freeze, and wildlife disappears. Humanity isn't immune. Without food, billions starve. It's not just survival anymore. Extinction becomes a real possibility.
In terms of its explosive power.
Even the use of one single nuclear weapon would already have devastating humanitarian consequences.
Researchers, academics, and advocates.
Then there's radiation fallout. The bombs don't just destroy cities, they poison the land. Vast regions become radioactive wastelands where no one can live. And what happens to the world's power structure? The superpowers, the ones who launched this madness, are gone. Governments crumble, leaving behind a vacuum. Small nations untouched by the bombs might rise, but it's a fragile hope. New alliances form, not for prosperity, but for survival. The global community, such as it remains, is forced to re-evaluate its priorities. Would this finally be the wake-up call for nuclear disarmament, or would history repeat itself? So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.